Welcome to 100 Days of Code with Here Technologies. My name is Sina and I'm a developer evangelist at Here Technologies. This is the 8th week of our challenge and we'll be talking about geofencing. If you are new, you can find information about our previous tasks and what we've done so far on Twitter. Our handle is HereDev. If you want to fast forward to all the solutions, they're also on YouTube. If you want to find the code repository, that's on GitHub, and I will link all of those below. So the first step to talk about geofencing is what is geofencing to begin with. Geofencing is when you want to create a perimeter around an area that you're interested in. For example, you have an online store and you want to create your geofence around that. And what is this going to let you do? So if you have any online promotion, so for example, you have a sale going on in your store and you want to share that with customers that are close. So for example, you have a big sale event and some of your customers happen to be really close. So you can send them a notification this way when you know that they're close to the store. So if they're interested, they could come in and check it out in person. So the idea of geofencing is creating meaningful experiences for your users and providing them meaningful information based on their geolocation. So today I'm going to be showing you I'm going to create a geofence around Space Needle, which is one of my favorite buildings in Seattle, and we are going to get started with that. So first thing about geofencing that you want to know is, well, for this example, we're going to create a WKT file. And in this file, we're going to talk about the perimeter. We're going to be defining the points that will be around our area of interest, which happens to be Space Needle today. So I'm going to grab latitude and longitudes for points that are kind of roughly representing where Space Needle is, and I already have that set up. So right now I'm going to create a file called spaceneedle.wkt, and I'm going to open that. Alright, so here are the points that I have selected. And if you notice, I have it's kind of difficult to notice from here, but I have longitudes before latitudes. This is how WKT formats formats points. The longitudes and latitudes are separated by a space, and the different points are separated by commas. This is how I will be defining my area. And for Here Technologies, if you have multiple polygons that you have or multiple areas of interest, you can give them different names and things like that. So for this example, I'm going to give this one a name and I'm going to call it Space Needle. One thing that you want to be sure of is that your columns are tab delimited. So I'm going to put a tab here and I'm going to put the WKT information about the polygon right under that. So I'm going to call this Space Needle. And here's the WKT information. And again, tab delimited. All right, I'm going to save that, close it, and then I'm going to go to my layers, and I'm going to import a layer from file, call it Space Needle, browse the file, and I'm going to upload it. Great. So now that I have this uploaded, I can take a look at where it falls on the map and double check that the points that I provided are correct. We can see that I have a rough shape around Space Needle. If you want to take this into production, maybe you want to be a little bit more careful with your positioning of points, but for this experience, this will be good enough. All right, so let's go to the next point and define and basically get information about the layer that we uploaded. So let's go in the code and start doing that. So we see the function that we have for get layers. I have some of the things predefined already. I have information about the polygon, which will be drawn on the map, so we can visually also see where a layer will be, just for the experience of being able to see this. And I have other things set up, so when we go to the map, when you click on different points, you can see whether your point that you selected will be falling inside the geofence or not. So with that, let's get started and create our getLayers function. So let's first start with getting the endpoint for our layers. And let's go find that. And here it is. And we want to be listing our layers. So we're going to get that information and append it to the rest of our string. We want to return the layer information, so we can create a GET request. And I have my API key in my config file, so if you want to do that, you can provide your API information directly or do whatever you would like with that. Alright, so here we have information about getting layers. If it returns it successfully, we're going to be getting a list of our layers. If not, we'll be returning an error. We can also log this information out if we want to do further debugging if this doesn't work. Okay, the next step would be creating a function on getting information about whether a point falls in our layers or not. So this function will say, given information about the layers that we have and given information about a point that we have identified, it could be the point about the location of our user. We can see this will tell us whether or not the position is inside our layer or not. So let's get started about writing that. We can return a new promise. Oops. And I have some of this information defined up here. So you can, if you're curious, you can refer to the code just to see how it's set up. But this is not the difficult part to set up. So you can find that information in our documentation as well. So for this, I'm going to refer to our documentation here, and we can just grab this specific example from our JavaScript API and bring it to our code. Okay, so here for our layers, we're getting a list of our layers here that is going to get passed to our function. For proximity, we have our position that's going to come in, so we want to get the latitude and longitude for that. And this is going to be separated with a comma. And we want the name column. All right, and we're gonna, if it's successful, we want to resolve. And if not, we want to reject and throw an error. All right, let's go see if that is working or not. All right, here we see that our map is loaded correctly, and we can see where Space Needle is on the map. So let's click on a location outside of our geofence. It's telling us correctly that we're outside the geofence. Let's try somewhere inside the geofence to see if that's working. Yay, it's telling us that we're within the geofence. Perfect. We can get closer. We're outside. Again, we're still inside the geofence. So this is exactly behaving as we expected it. So if we wanted to take this a little further and say, hey, this is just telling us when the customer is basically inside of our store. This is still valuable information that we can get. Hey, we know that this customer actually today visited our store, so that's great. But what if the customer is actually not inside the store just yet? So we can add that information up to the proximity. Also comma separated, we can add, like, if we want to say the customer is 100 meters away from our store, so we can say 100 meters away, and let's try that. So this way we expect to see if we expect to have a little bit of a wider circle around our geofence. So with 100 meters away, we want to still we want our function to still return that we're inside the geofence. So let's go see if that is working. I'm going to save this and I'm going to go to our page. So now here, if I put my if I click here, I expect it to tell me that we're still inside the geofence. Yay! And let's see, for example, what 100 meters away would actually be. Still within the geofence. And there we go. We're outside the geofence by this point. And still outside. Still outside. And we're within the geofence. Okay, perfect. So this is the example of how we can set up geofencing and use it for our applications. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We're happy to help. Happy coding.